What college basketball games are you looking forward to this season? Comment below and enjoy this episode.
Welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the college offseason podcast where we're less of the regular season, but more of the offseason. Our loyal listeners probably have figured out when I use that intro that it is me and Ryan here on the show, but we have a very special episode planned today because college basketball is closer than expected, and we're getting a first-hand look at some of the non-conference schedules for some of the best teams in college basketball. And Ryan, I'm going to be completely honest. You had to know at some point that I was going to schedule this episode just so I could give myself an opportunity to talk about how both of my teams, Duke and Texas, are going to face off on November 4th in the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, low key in Duke's backyard. But regardless, the real winner of that game is going to be me because I'm a fan of both. I get to sit back and enjoy, and I'm happy either way. So you had to
Yeah,
know, they had to know that that was the only reason I wanted to do this whole episode was just talk about that game and that game only.
yeah, that'll be interesting. But I hope that never happens with my teams. But if it's like a game, I'd rather it happen in basketball because of the circumstances in football. But I'd rather for it be a game that like it doesn't. I mean, it matters a little bit for the regular season, but doesn't matter like a ton as far as shaping out in the postseason. But I mean, I just want my teams to stay as far away as they can. And they have nothing to do with each other. So I mean, right now I'm good unless we start scheduling some non-conference games.
I mean, it's November 4th, so regardless of whoever loses that game, I don't think it'll
Yeah.
have too
Yeah.
many implications on the season. Besides, I mean, I think Texas could be a solid team. Duke we know is going to be a solid team, at least we would think. I mean,
Yeah. I
barring
mean,
some
all
catastrophic
the players.
meltdown, they're going to be good. I mean, literally, like my name on the show says, it's such a flex to be able to go from Cooper Flag to Cameron Boozer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at
It's like
November
going from
4th.
Marvin Harrison Jr. to Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah,
I had
it's a feeling you know all too well in the Ohio State receiver room.
Yeah.
And who y'all probably and y'all got some other like really stud recruits coming in the next couple years of the receiver room. Of course, you never have to worry about receivers for Ohio State.
Yeah. But I mean, the fans are probably confused because I just randomly brought that up and changed sports. But yeah, it's crazy to think that you can go from two recruits like that in the matter of a year. So
It's a luxury that only few
props to
teams
Duke.
know.
Props
Yeah,
to Duke.
it's a luxury. But so we officially get started on this non-conference schedule of college basketball and these marquee matchups. One of the hot topics I've been hearing around the social media verse is that UConn has the best non-conference schedule, not just this year, but of all time. Now, that's a pretty big statement. So, Ryan, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I it's already, I was trying to do my research and it was a little tough finding non-conference schedules for some reason. I mean, it wanted to go to different years. It's like I'm talking about this year, 2025, 2026 next year.
Well, that was the question though. Like it was,
I
are they the
know.
best? Are they the best non-conference schedule? Is this
I
the best
know.
non-conference schedule of all time?
And I know how tough it is. Like their schedule they have from what I saw was Arizona, Texas, Kansas, BYU, Florida, Illinois. And some of those teams still have to prove themselves, which they might have a rebuilding year, which we have no clue how good they will be. Kind of talking about Arizona, they might be kind of freshman dominant with some key returners like what was it, Jaden Bradley and Toby Awaka, um, bringing in guys like Braden Burrows or Burries and Koa Pete, they might be their two best players could be their two freshmen that are coming in. So I don't I honestly don't think it's the best of all time. I think there's been other, but I like to keep it into this year that I have two teams for the next question that could have the same or could have schedules that kind of go along with it that are kind of same length in the race.
Fair
I'm not
enough.
gonna
I'm also of the opinion that I don't think it's the best schedule of all time. I think that's straight caparoni. But
Yeah.
I think when you look at the non-conference schedule the last several years for Gonzaga, because they've really had to overcompensate in the non-conference schedule so that they could build a decent resume heading into the NCAA tournament, because we all know their conference schedule is basically non-existent compared to other teams that
Yeah.
make the tournament. But so you got to look at those Gonzaga teams. But I am officially with you that they're not even the best non-conference schedule of this season. And
Yeah.
you want to get started on that one, or do you want me to go?
Yeah. I can I'll do so I have two. Do you have
I have one.
I'll go and then I'll let you go and then
That's fine.
I'll go after. So we'll switch off. So I'm gonna start off with a team that I don't like at all, but and I don't like to give them credit, but they do have a good conference or non-conference schedule this year that would make him look good if they can go and play well during those games. And that is Kentucky. Kentucky is losing a little bit, but also bringing in a lot of good players, a ton of players from the transfer portal that they want to make a deep run this year. But they have Louisville, which is at the Yum, and that's a very different matchup this year because that is like a November 11th, which is like one of the first games of the season. That'll be very interesting. They got also Michigan State, North Carolina, Gonzaga, Indiana, and St. John's. I think their game against St. John's is so interesting, and I'm can't wait to watch it. But that is my first team, so I'll let you go.
No, that was my team. That
Oh,
Kentucky,
really?
I
Wow.
hate to admit it, but like Kentucky is the has the team that I think has the best non-conference schedule. I mean, you like you said, Louisville to begin the year, Michigan State, Gonzaga, Indiana, St. John's, North Carolina. Not to mention they have an exhibition game against Purdue. I mean,
Yeah,
so they're coming right out of the gates. And
yeah,
I have mixed emotions about the rivalry against Louisville being the first game of the year. On one end, I think, it starts the season off with a bang. But on the
mhm,
other end, I don't for the rivalry's sake and the fanhood between both teams, I don't think it's a fair assessment of where both teams are going to be to begin the year. I kind of
yeah,
like it better when it's closer to December. That way you have a couple games under your belt to like really get an accurate look of like where both teams are. But the St. John's one, that is a game that is, going to be filled with storylines. I mean, you
mhm,
have Rick Pitino, former Kentucky coach, who's coaching against his former team, and he's coaching against, one of his former players on the 1996 national championship team in Mark Pope. And then, not to mention, um, it's in Catlanta, as they like to say.
yeah.
The game's in Atlanta. And I think it's going to be two really good teams. I've been on this podcast saying that St. John's, I think, has a ceiling of 2009 North Carolina. I know that's a big statement, but that's how good I think St. John's can eventually be. But yeah, when I look at Kentucky's schedule, it's tough to argue that anyone has a better one than them.
Yeah, I was trying to, oh, and also wanted to add they also got Bryce Hopkins who used to play for Kentucky, so
That's
that's
right.
another storyline to add. Um, but yeah, I mean, they just have a tough non-conference schedule and they're playing Louisville without a warm-up basically. I mean, this is smack dab in the start of the season and I haven't honestly I don't remember a time where I've seen it that early. So we're gonna be playing. We're gonna know a little bit about our team, but like not everything we need to know before that matchup. But so my second team is it's actually your team. I'm gonna go with Duke. Duke has a very solid non-conference schedule this year, and I hope these all are correct. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. But we got Texas, which is in Charlotte, like you said. We got Kansas, we got Arkansas, Florida, Michigan State, Texas Tech, and Michigan.
Mhm.
Those are all really good matchups, and Michigan's going to be a team to watch out for. As much as I don't like to say it, with some of the key players that they have transferring to them and some freshmen. But yeah, that is another really tough non-conference schedule that competes with UConn, I think, and makes UConn not the toughest non-conference schedule of all time.
I'm
So
also
those
in
are my two
full
teams.
agreement of that I think Duke's schedule is even better than UConn's. So yeah, from
Yeah,
all this talk about UConn being the best non-conference schedule of all time, and we just rattled off two teams that I think are arguably better. But the big thing with Duke's non-conference schedule is that I absolutely love what John Shire's doing in the non-conference schedule, because
yeah,
he wants all the smoke. He wants to make damn sure that the Duke is playing the best of the best before they head into the tournament. And that's a very big reason why Duke goes farther in the tournament every year. They're playing the best of the best. Even when the years the ACC is down, like last year, they make up for it in the non-conference schedule. Now this year with the ACC, I think is going to be back to what it is to its standard. Now you look at the non-conference schedule on top of that, and Duke's going to have one of the toughest schedules in the country overall.
Yeah. And I do want to say that one of the most exciting things of the year in college basketball is the Champions Classic. That
Hmm.
is so enjoyable every year because it's four of the top programs in college basketball all competing with, and there's always freshmen to show at the start of the season, see what they can do against good teams. So it's always great matchups no matter who it is.
Absolutely. What's your probably favorite matchup from the Champions Classic this year?
Like going into next year,
Well,
like
going
so
into
it,
this season, yeah. What of the two games of the Champions
so
Classic,
it
which one do you think is the most intriguing?
it's so it's Kentucky, Michigan State, and then that'd
Duke and
be
Kansas.
Duke of Kansas. I don't know. I'm really excited for Kansas to watch Darren Peterson just because of all like I watched the McDonald's All-American game and he was absolutely balling and he's a good player. And by the way, Louisville has a exhibition game against Kansas. So that'd be interesting. I don't know if it'll be on TV or not, but um so we got Kansas, Michigan State,
And then Kentucky and no, you
Kentucky,
have
Michigan
Kentucky,
State,
Michigan State,
Kansas.
Kansas, Duke.
Um, I don't know.
That's tough, yeah, because I mean, yeah.
Those are two pretty even. I'm gonna go with Duke and Kansas just to watch like the freshman for Duke and freshman for Kansas. Like um to watch the brothers for Duke,
The Boozer twins.
the Boozer twins for Duke and watch guys like Darren Peterson for Kansas. So I think I mean they're both great matchups, but I think I'm more excited to watch that one, honestly.
I mean, I don't think there's a wrong answer because when I look at Kentucky and Michigan State, I'm going to look at two teams that are going to be flying around, running a lot of motion offense. Of course, Cohen Carr for Michigan State is one of the more exciting players to
Yeah.
watch in college basketball. Have you seen that clip of him like playing pickup and then breaking the rim?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. Now, and like that's the thing. Like I'm a big recruiting fanatic. I'm the self-proclaimed recruiting expert on this podcast. Like Cohen Carr has been like that obviously since high school.
Yeah.
So this is like no surprise to me that he was able to come in and be like one of the most exciting players in college basketball. But when you look at Kentucky, Mark Pope's going to run a lot of motions, a lot of actions, a lot of
Yeah.
backdoor cuts to the rim, and it's going to be well coached basketball. And of course, Pope on one side, Izzo on the other. The matchups are going to be there. And of course, Duke and Kansas, I think the storylines are with the talent that's going to be in that game. Of course, you have the Boozer twins for Duke. You have Demay Sarr. And then of course, you got five returners: Isaiah Evans, Darren Harris. Sorry, we got talking about Darren Peterson, and trust
Yeah.
me, there's a lot to talk about with Darren Peterson. I'll get to him
Yeah.
in a minute. Darren Harris, Patrick Gongba, Malik Brown, and Caleb Foster. A lot of high-profile players, and also two very good coaches, John Shire and Bill Self. I personally think Bill Self is past his prime when it comes to X's and O's play calling, but that's just me. But
Yeah.
we could also, and I'm interested to see how Kansas looks without Hunter Dickinson because as good of a player as Hunter Dickinson was, I often think that he held Kansas back during his time there. Just his ability to not be able to guard the pick and rolls, him kind of taking too long in the post at times. I thought he slowed Kansas down in times that Kansas was looking to run. And I've been watching a lot of the clips from the Kansas scrimmages, and the duo between Darren Peterson and Flory Badunga, it looks like it's going to be one of the most fun duos in college basketball this year. And I got to watch Darren Peterson, the Boozer twins, up at the Chipotle Nationals. Both are every bit, but all of them are every bit as what they're made out to be. I think Caden is underrated, is about as underrated as a five-star can get. But yeah, Darren Peterson, he's legit. I will go on this podcast and say that Darren Peterson is probably the best combo guard prospect I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I'm very hold on. I'm very excited to watch him and see what him and Flory could have done. And you honestly, I remember you saying that you thought that Flory should have been starting and that was and Hunter Dickinson sitting. and he would be like an off the bench type center, and that would be how Kansas would exceed going down the stretch of the season. I remember you saying that, so I'll give you credit for that. And they never listened to you,
No,
Les.
they never listen to me. And sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm right, but I feel like that time Kansas would have, had a more successful season had they done that. I stand on that.
Yeah, but I was trying to I'm looking up the I know Kentucky got a ton of basketball. Here we go. Some of their basketball transfer portal players that I think that will be very good. They could be very good for the team, like Jalen Lowe from Pittsburgh, and getting Jaden Quaintance. I know he was committed there but didn't play there, but getting him back in that Kentucky blue, and just all of these, like Cam Williams from Tulane, all of these guys that could be great transfer portal commits. And you know they used to go get those like top highly rated freshmen. Now Mark Pope's gotten get them a lot of these transfers, and so we'll see how they do, and they could be very solid with all these good transfer portal players.
I will say one of the big losses for Michigan State, not just heading into that game before the season, is that one of their higher profile transfer portal commits, Caleb Glenn, who I covered during my time at the
Yeah,
Sentinel News, went to Male High School here in Louisville.
played
You
at
know, he
Louisville.
Yeah, and played at Louisville for a year and then played it last year at FAU. He was one of the more talented players that I covered during my time with the Sentinel News, and for him to be out for the season right now with the injury, that's a huge loss for Michigan State. But I think, given what we saw from Michigan State last year, Izzo's got a lot left in the tank. I mean, there was some debate about it the last couple of years, but he really got back to his bread and butter and what makes him one of the best coaches of all time. So I still think it's going to be a great coaching matchup, and I expect to see a lot of people just flying around out there making plays.
Yeah, I remember Caleb Glenn, and prayers to him. Hopefully he has a speedy recovery. But I loved his time at Lowell, even though it wasn't very long. But I thought that he showed flashes of being a very good player, and now hopefully he can show that whenever he gets healthy for Michigan State. Maybe next year um if everything works out. So yeah, prayers to him. And yeah, I mean, we are loaded with matchups, and
We
we got summer to enjoy, but then we're about to hit the dead period with all the sports. The final game 7 Sunday, and the finals are about to be over, and we're about to hit the dead spot in sports. What are we gonna do, Les?
Well, we are the college off-season podcast. There's always going to be plenty to talk about. Not to
Yeah.
mention we have the new college football game coming out here in a few days. So, and I think I'll be able to play online, so you'll be able to get this action from Texas.
Okay, good. All right, good. He's not ducking this year.
Ain't nobody ducking, bro. Ain't nobody ducking.
You
So,
just didn't want to face Ohio State's team last year. That's what it was.
yeah, you caught me.
Yeah, and some of the overalls already got leaked, but we will talk. We'll have a episode. I'm assuming probably about the college football game, maybe if that's after it's released. So I'm
Yeah.
very excited.
Sounds good. And plus, we have the NBA draft coming up next week, where
Oh yeah,
we'll talk about some of the best prospects from college, and who of those prospects we think are going to be better in the NBA. Some we think kind of
yeah.
peaked in college. It's going to give me a chance for 40 minutes to talk about Cooper Flag. So I can't miss up an opportunity to do that. But as pertaining to this episode, we're going to give three marquee matchups that we are really looking forward to, and then we'll probably spend the rest of the
Ooh,
time just talking about some other marquee matchups. But who are the
less
top? We're
lag
going to talk about the top three marquee matchups
telling me.
that we are looking forward to this year. So, Ryan, do you want to get started, or do you want me to go?
You can go. You lagged out. Are we good?
Yeah,
You
we're
can
good.
hear me, right?
Everything here is fine.
Okay. Because you lagged out, and then you just started talking at um 2.5 speed, so you're like
Hmm.
talking really fast.
I
But
think I'm just
now we're
talking
back
faster
together.
this. I
Or
think I'm just talking faster this episode.
I feel like I am too, honestly. But but you can start us off on a good note.
All right, I'll start us off with the first marquee matchup. Obviously, I didn't want to include Kentucky and St. John's because we already talked about that. But these are three games that didn't spend a lot of time on or in the earlier segment. So my first is Kentucky versus Indiana. We have a rivalry renewed after 13 seasons, and I actually like this because, as we like to say on the show, Cal is ducking the smoke, but Pope wants all the smoke. And I think it's great for both local fan bases to get this rivalry renewed. Just so much history between the two programs, and we also have two new regimes from the last time these teams played. Kentucky obviously with Mark Pope, and then of course Indiana with Darian DeVries. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the Kentucky Indiana rivalry looks like renewed. That
Sorry, I don't know what's going on, but so you picked Kentucky
in
versus
Indiana,
Indiana.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I don't know what's going on my Wi-Fi, but I moved inside because we can't deal with that this episode. Okay, so marquee matchups. I'm gonna go. I have I have three. I'm gonna choose which one I want to go first. You just picked Kentucky, and I have one of them in my matchups. I'm gonna go with Alabama versus St. John's. Alabama will be another solid team again, and St. John's with their new and improved players and some of the key players coming back. And I think that if anything, this St. John's team could be much better because they showed in the tournament that they could not shoot, and that was a huge part of having success in the tournament. So that is one of my favorite matchups this year, or one of the best matchups to watch this year and non-conference, St. John's versus Alabama.
My number two, I have Michigan State with against Arkansas because I think I look at this game and there's going to be athletes galore. I just see so many players run up and down the court, jumping out of the gym, and I think it's just going to be must-see TV. So Michigan State and Arkansas is my number two marquee matchup.
All right, for my second one, and we've actually already talked about it. Um, with the game with one of the more like storylines in it. Kentucky and St. John's, Rick Pitino playing against his former team. Bryce Hopkins, who I mentioned, playing against Kentucky after playing there a while ago. Let's be honest, it was a while ago.
Seems like forever ago.
But yeah, there would be so many storylines in that game, and I'm so excited for it. But that is one of the best matchups this year that I think.
All right, so getting into my third marquee matchup, and this is going to be a little bit of a homer pick, but it's my show. I can do that. Duke
Okay.
and Florida, because I think this is going to be the matchup which should have been the national championship last year. Of course, if Duke doesn't go on to choke against Houston, but Florida, Todd Golden's done a great job in what he's turned Florida into. Again, Duke's going to be really good this year, of course, with all the talent they have. And, I kind of want Duke to come out and show that they should have won the national championship against Florida. They should not have choked against Houston. I know people that are, Florida fans in my own personal life that actually even told me that if Duke had not choked against Houston, Duke probably would have beaten Florida because they were the only team in the tournament that could match up with them. And now, even though like it's a bunch of new places, players, sorry, no Walter Clayton Jr. for Florida, no Cooper Flagg for Duke. Still two very talented teams. And I really hope that this is one of the games because I know a lot of Florida fans are hype about Oliver Rio being able to play for Florida this year. I'm really hoping that he gets exposed in this game because as intriguing as it is to have a 7'9" player on your team, dude is going to absolutely get
Oh,
cooked in the pick and rolls. And I think it's going to be great. I can literally see so much action where Cam Boozer flashes to the top of the key, bringing Oliver Rio out of the paint and then hitting, DeMesar or Isaiah Evans or whoever cutting to the rim. And I think it's just going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful basketball. And I think we're going to dice them up like a surgeon.
you know, I've never seen a 7'9" basketball player play, but I've seen like a little bit shorter. But I am interested to see like how good he is. And he's not, I mean, he's obviously he's not supposed to be like the best, but he is going to Florida and he is 7'9". So I think there could be some very good signs and some good basketball from him. But so with my third one, and this is a rematch of the second round, which is a round of 32. I have a team you just said, Florida versus UConn. I think that this would be a very good rematch and a very good matchup non-conference. UConn, they have a tough non-conference schedule and they're in the Jimmy V Classic, but they're not in one of those like in-season big tournaments like the Maui because they didn't know how to do that last year, as you can tell by not winning. But yeah, UConn versus Florida. Florida coming off the national championship. Let's see how they play after getting that type of national championship win. And UConn, having two national championships and then losing in the round of 32 versus this team, Florida. I want to see how both teams react this season.
Well, I think that wraps up our top three marquee matchups for the non-conference schedule. Are there any games you want to get into?
For are we doing most excited for?
No, just in general. Like we gave our three marquee matchups. Now we can just talk about some others that kind of are intriguing.
Um, I honestly just want to say as a whole, we are we're very fortunate to have these type of matchups, all of these great matchups that we get to watch during college basketball, and I mean, we always have something to look forward to. I'm very grateful for that, but I mean, for I mean, so many good matchups, and there's a certain day that you can look forward to. Speaking of.
A certain day I can look forward to, speaking of.
Yep. You want me to get into it?
Yes, please. That was very vague.
Okay. So, college sports fans, this is football and basketball. I don't know if you've heard, December 6th is the day to watch out for. Listen up. So, starting off with college basketball, we have Duke versus Michigan State. We have Auburn versus Arizona. Louisville versus Indiana. Tennessee versus Illinois, who was a game that ended in a buzzer beater last year. We have Purdue versus Iowa State. We have St. John's versus Ole Miss. We have Wisconsin versus Marquette. Okay, those are the college basketball right there. And college football, we have the Big 12, the MAC, the SEC, ACC, and Big Ten championship.
There's going to be a loaded slate of games right there.
That is one of the more loaded days I've seen of college sports in a while. I mean, that is an absolute loaded day that you just have to sit on your couch the whole day and watch.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to move that day. I might, get up super early, hit the gym, maybe depending might is that's on a Saturday, right?
Yeah, that'll be on Saturday.
Oh, so we'll be doing a podcast about it. We'll probably be talking about it.
Yeah.
And
I
then
mean,
I'll hit the gym and then I'm gonna not move from the couch for the rest of the day.
that is a absolute loaded day that we may have with like the SEC championship and Big Ten championship. We may have some up and down day or an up and down as a whole day on December 6th though. So,
Sounds like a day I'm gonna be making a lot of bets.
yeah. That'd be a good idea, which with all those high market college basketball games that you could win some money on.
And of course, I'm hoping that my Texas Longhorns are back into the SEC championship in football.
Yeah,
And I'm
maybe
hoping that my Duke Blue Devils are in the ACC championship, but that's a lot to ask. But I think Duke could surprise a lot of people this
you never
year.
know. You know, people
I have
are
another intriguing matchup I want to talk about real quick for college basketball in the non-conference schedule. You have Purdue versus Alabama, and I think one of the most monumental news that either one of these teams could have gotten is that LeBaron Philon has decided to, skip the NBA draft, come back to college. So these I look at Purdue and Alabama, and these are two of the best backcourts in college basketball, and I think that matchup's going to be hell of intriguing. If I didn't have my other three marquee matchups that I was tuned in for, that would have made the cut.
Yeah, and Purdue is going to be looked at, and people are going to be anticipating that they're going to be one of the best with having Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer coming back, and and Trey Coppin-Wren, and also bringing in some of their transfers that we haven't seen a lot before from Purdue, honestly.
Yeah,
Transfer.
Purdue is very careful how they do with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
They really don't load up or, make any home runs, but they are very, they're very particular who they bring in. And I got to respect it. I think it was,
Yeah.
what was it, Lance Jones they brought in a couple years ago. I mean, it wasn't a flashy transfer portal move, but he ended up being a very good impact player for them.
It
And
was.
it helped him get to the national title game. But of course, they ran into an absolute buzzsaw, which was that UConn team that arguably
Yeah.
might be the best team in college basketball history. If you go by the numbers, they might be.
I mean, they were destroying everyone. No one got close, really.
Yeah, they set the NCAA tournament record for, the largest margin of victory throughout the whole tournament.
Yeah. Um, but I just want to get into this real quick because I can't wait to talk about this matchup. Can I go ahead with one of the,
Yes.
I kind of already talked about the first game, but my most game that I'm excited for, Louisville versus Arkansas. We will never forgive what Kenny Payne did this program, and we are going to get back on Kenny Payne, even though he is an assistant coach doing nothing. If you see him on the side with the team, I mean, he just sits there and does nothing.
He
We are
just
going.
smiles in the corner.
Yeah, he adds no value to the team, and he added no value coaching our team.
That
So
sounds like a salty Louisville fan statement right
it
there.
does. It does. And it will. I have a shirt that says I survived the pain, spelling Payne as Kenny Payne's last name. Because I got the pain, and now we're in the Patrick Kelsey era
So
with
Louisville wants all the smoke against Arkansas.
yes.
The former Kentucky coach that they want to get back on, and of course, the former coach that brought the Louisville program down to what was once seen the point of no return. I love it.
And just like the Kentucky St. John's game, this game has so many storylines that will be covered, and I'm so excited for it. I really hope we can win because a lot of Louisville fans we're hoping for a win just to get back on our coach that literally broke down our program. So
We shall see. I'll definitely be tuned into that game. But
yes,
again, should be a very intriguing matchup. So
and
we'll see.
that speaking of that, I mean the SEC ACC challenge will be so exciting to watch.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, we talked about one matchup we have with Duke and Florida,
Yeah,
which should have been the national championship game last year, but that's beside the point. I already got into that. No need to rehash that. We only got
yeah,
about 5 minutes left. We don't need to get into all that.
yeah. But I mean, talked about. I mean, there's so many good. I mean, we also got Kentucky, North Carolina. I mean, there's so many good matchups to that we gotta wait for. We got time to kill before that happens.
We do. We got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this in there so we can end the rest of the podcast talking about whatever it is we want to talk about. As always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel to get the latest updates we have of content coming out. Be sure to follow the social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. That's at Less is More Sports. Be sure to follow the side quest on TikTok. That's at BeansDad018. And we got just at 5 minutes right now. What are we going to end the podcast in a 5 minute rant? This is probably the longest rant we're going to be able to get into. And we still might get cut off by the timer.
Are you annoyed of watching Shea get so many foul calls?
You know, I've literally heard every argument about that. People call him a foul merchant, a free throw merchant, whatever it is. And then we compare his free throw attempts to, some other all time greats, and it's actually significantly lower. But I think where I defend the narrative is that it's not necessarily how many free throws he gets, it's the fouls that he gets.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, it is kind of annoying, but at the same time, I got to respect Shea for being able to, put himself in the position to be able to sell those calls, and I feel like I'd be a little hypocritical to, hate on it because a lot of what he does as far as drawing fouls is very similar to what my favorite player of all time, Dwayne Wade, did. So I
Yeah.
feel like I'd be hypocritical if I hated on Shea too much for it. But I actually am going for the Thunder in this series, not because I like the Thunder, or I'm a Thunder fan by any stretch of the imagination, but because I put money on the series.
That's
I'm a
fair.
fan. I'm a fan of my pocketbooks.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Um, it does get it's at a certain point it does get annoying with all the foul calls, but I can't take that away from how good of a player that Shea is. I mean, he is an absolute baller, and if you want a bucket, it should go in his hands for
Yeah,
sure.
I know Brandon Walker is getting a lot of talk right now, which is kind of random that he's getting involved in this, because he's an SEC football. I mean, he's a college football podcast host, and
I actually
now he's
love
talking.
Brandon Walker. I'm not gonna lie, he's
No, I do too. Like, I like his
great.
content, but I thought it was random that he's chiming in on NBA,
Yeah,
saying that this is like he's like the worst NBA MVP ever. I don't know if I'd go that far, but
yeah, no. I mean, there's definitely been worse.
do you have any in mind? You
Um,
said that with so much confidence. There's definitely been worse.
this might be a stretch, and I don't know if you're a fan of him, but I always thought that Jokic deserved it over Joel Embiid, and so I honestly would say and go out and say that Shea might be a better player than Joel Embiid was when he won the MVP.
I don't know
Just
about
saying.
that. I don't know about that.
But that's a hot take that we like to say. I want to give a hot take a day, as um going on the podcast, but I like Jokic though. I'm a fan of Jokic, but I also like Shea. So it was a two-man race this year. So and Shea won it, but
Honestly, I'm one to say Jokic should have won it this year, for being completely honest.
well, I was saying that too, yeah. And so he could. I mean, it seems like he could win MVP whenever he wants.
I mean, Jokic is like prime when it comes to MVP races. It's kind of like what LeBron's was. I mean, you really could win it every year.
Yeah,
It's whether or not the media wants to give it to him, honestly.
yeah. Now he does need some help because Jamal Murray is not it. He's not all the help that Jokic needs to go to the finals. Just saying, he just needs more. He just Jamal Murray just needs more consistency.
Yeah. He needs to
Uh,
get back to that, playoff killer that he was the year
yeah,
they won the championship.
yeah. He needs that. He needs to be that bubble Jamal Murray. That
Bubble
bubble
Jamal
Jamal.
Murray, the NBA championship Jamal Murray. Yeah, he needs to get back to that. If he
The
could get back
bubble
to that,
got.
then the Nuggets are like if he could get back to that consistently, the Nuggets are a dynasty.
Yeah. The bubble had some of the weirdest moments with players. Like we had prime TJ Warren in the
Oh, I
bubble.
know.
It
And
was. I mean,
who shut down that all that TJ Warren hype was my
it
Miami
was,
Heat.
it was the Heat. Yeah. It was those that like arguments, all the beef with them was nuts. Yeah, but the NBA is almost over for this year, so
I'm hoping the Thunder win so I can collect my
I'm
money.
excited for it though. One of the best things that they brought back is showing the intros at the start of the game. That's always been very hyped up and gets the game much more hype.
Yep. Should be an interesting game. We got a game seven. Best two words in sports.
Yep, it is. And in the last time we've had Game 7
Win.
NBA Finals,
Win.
the Cavs.
Mm. Has it been that long?
I guess so. That's what I learned last night. I'm pretty sure.
And that was
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.